What's going on YouTube? Warstorm here, coming at you guys with another video day. Today we're actually bringing you guys an updated Zefra deck profile with some of the new additions to the deck, such as the Endymion and the GuardDragon package. Before I get to that, I want to talk about some cards I don't play, and if you want to skip to the actual deck profile, there'll be a link down below in the description box so you can skip to that point in the video. You know, if you're not interested, you just want to see the deck profile, you'll be able to skip ahead. So, this is something I want to do a little differently from my previous deck profiles, because I feel like this is something I'll talk about a card and I want to actually see what it does and explain why I don't play it, but why you could play it. So the first card is actually Nightmare Corruptor Ibly. So this is an interesting combo I came up with when I was testing. Basically, it's a similar combo to how Orcus does their Nightmare Mermaid into Orchestrated Nightmare and the Orcus combo. The big difference is your goal is to give your opponent Nightmare Corruptor Ibly, so you can actually pop off your boy Yazi here turn 1. And that's the main thing you want to be doing with the deck, is that you want to be popping. It gives you a way to pop Yazi off turn 1, which gives you 3 tokens and it's a tuner to mess with, so you can do some cool combos. Definitely something I would need more time in the lab, but I was sitting at like 45 cards and pulling it off fairly consistently. The only real problem with Ibly is that obviously if you are playing against Salamangreats, you do not want to leave Ibly on your opponent's side of the field, because they will one Ibly can give them full combos, so do not leave it out there against Salamangreats. Like, can't stress that enough. The other card that's the cards that are no longer in this list that I could consider putting back in, but I just didn't have room and needed to play other cards, were actually Zefra 4 and 9 Pillars, the Yang Zing. These cards are still pretty powerful, and I do like them, but the problem with them is that I feel like if you're going to play one of you kind of have to play both if you're going to play the deck, because the little combo is you activate Pillars, popping your Secret of the Yang Zing, then your Secret of the Yang Zing will trigger Searching Out War, which War can be activated. It's basically like a Scrap Dragon effect, can be activated while you have 2 Zefra monsters in your scale. It's pretty powerful, but I also think it's kind of a relic of the older builds where nowadays you can't really, we're not in the days of Goki where Chao Fang with earth materials on it is just really hard for them to deal with. I think Zefra has to kind of move beyond some of the older combos, because they just don't really do enough to push the deck forward into 2019. So that's just how I personally feel about the cards. I mean, I definitely think there's room to negotiate to put them back in, but it's really up to you guys. And the final card, it's not going to take too long, which is Bullsword Dragon. I simply do not have it because it's pretty expensive. But and I had other things I wanted to purchase, such as the Sky Striker deck. And I'm going to go ahead and get it when it gets reprinted on the new Battles of Legend. I simply do not have the card. That's why it's not in here. But if you have it, definitely recommend playing it. So, with all of the way, we'll go ahead and get to the deck profile. So to start us off, we have 3 copies of Zefra. I've always been an advocate of playing 3, especially in a build like this where this is a 44 card list, so I want to see Zefra all the time. It's a pretty powerful card. Being able to send your monsters to the extra deck that can then be Pendulum Summoned to search out more things is fantastic. Like, couldn't really ask for a better, support monster for the deck. The monster effect's kind of irrelevant because you can't really Pendulum Summon thing twice is kind of moot when you're burning. You're not going to use that effect anymore, sadly. Then for the Zefra components, actually been slimmed down a little bit. So we have 2 treasures, 2 secret, 1 windy, and 1 Saiton. Personally, I've slowly been kind of condensing down the Zefra list. Saiton is here over Thuban because it pops set cards, which is more relevant because we're in a pretty back row heavy format between things like Mystic Mine, but it's also level 4 target for secret if you do need to pull off the combo. 2 secret is I think it's a good number because it's not the best monster to have in your hand. You really want to pitch it to the extra deck with your Froth, but sometimes it's kind of nice to have an extra scale in hand. Treasure is down to 2 simply for space issues and trying to make more things, but if you do happen to Pendulum Summon both of these guys, it can get you to a level 7 Synchro, and turning this into a tuner can also do some cute things such as be able to make Savage Dragons, so pretty neat. I think it's a pretty solid lineup, and Wendy can recycle things from the extra deck as well, so I feel like if you're going to play, Wendy's probably one of the better ones. Then for, of course, we have our Dragon package because we are playing the GuardDragon, so we have the 2 Dark Worm, 1 Gate Zero, and the 1 Destrudo. I found Dark Worm was best at 2 as opposed to 3 because a lot of the combos I've done in testing, because I'm not playing things like Chronograph Sorcerer, you need your normal summon to kind of proc the whole combo. So while having this in hand is not the worst thing in the world, your normal summon kind of needs to be open for other kind of Pendulum starter cards. So that's one of the reasons I do have it in here at 2. I found 2 is kind of the perfect number with the card. Gate 0 is just a 1-up because unlike Pendulum Magicians, unless you have the, in this deck, unless you have the big Magician, the Endymion, the scale 8 one, you cannot Pendulum summon this, so it's near 1. Destrudo is really good, really staple in it because it allows you to get, you can summon it off your guard dragons and it gets you to level 7 Synchro. It's a pretty powerful card, definitely recommend it. And of course we have the Endymion package with the 3 Servants of Endymion, have the 1 Endymion, the Mighty Master of Magic, and the 2 Jackal Kings. Originally I wasn't playing, Servant is pretty self-explanatory. Basically, she has 3 spell counters, you can activate her Pendulum effect to grab any monster that can have a spell counter on it and summon it from your deck, and then they both get counters on it. Pretty, like, it's one of the best starter cards like Pendulum's decks could have asked for. But the main reason I had Jackal King at 2 as opposed to this is because it's a level 6, so if you draw it, it's a good body just to simply Pendulum summon out. And Master is, I actually really like having just the 1-up because it's a searchable high scale off of your spell power, the spell power spell card, so that's really nice. And it's just another negation. A lot of times I find Jackal King is better in the early game states that if you open this, because it gets counter on it, which can negate hand traps, which is fantastic. And Mighty is a little bit better later in the combo, because usually with the way I do my end board, I have usually Vortex and Quantum Dragon, so, and along with Erratic and the counter trap. This is kind of a better in the more scenarios where I use this later in the turn combo. So pretty good, pretty staple standard engine. I don't really feel like you need Master Cerberus and Zefra in my opinion. Then some of the remaining monsters, we do have I'm still an advocate of playing the Gamma package in Zefra. I've done the math on it. It's better to play, you have a higher chance of opening a card that stops a hand trap by playing Gamma and Called by the Grave and playing 44 cards than you do just playing 40 cards and just playing Called by the Grave. It's just, and I love Gamma in this deck because a lot of, it's not as unexpected as it used to be, but it's a pretty dang good card, especially when you're going, because most of your initial plays are all spell-based between Servant, between Oracle, between, you know, all your starter cards are spell cards. So more often than not, you're going to have this thing live, and it's going to get even better when we do get Lambda, the new Link monster, which I am planning on playing. Really good. I really like him in this deck. And last monsters, of course, 1 Mare. It's mostly a tech choice because I like the card. It is still, I still think it's a fantastic card, but you could probably negotiate it out if you don't feel like the deck needs it, but I just like the card, it's good. Then for the spells, we have 3 copies of our Oracle, the Zefra, along with the Dragon Ravine and the Terraforming and Set Rotation. This is kind of our field spell package. Alternatively, you could also play a Mystic Mine as well to give your opponent off a set rotation if you think so. But personally, I find that this is just the most consistent field spell package I've been running, and I really like it. Basically, if you open like any of these starter card like this and Servant can equal full combo, which is pretty dang good. And that's when and Oracle will search out all your Zefra monsters, and these just are. Dragon Ravine and Set Rotation can be like, they're just more extended. This is also pretty good against some of the decks like Salamangreat, for example, that need their field spell. It can be pretty good. You can, they only have 1 field spell anyway, so you can set Rotation, then lock them out, then they get rid of their field spell. Pretty good. Then of course, Zefra 3 Zefra Providence. You know, what deck doesn't want a emergency call that searches monster spells and traps and also protects your things? Not too much to say there. Fantastic card. Then of course our Endymion Searcher 3 Spell Power Mastery. This card is absolutely amazing. I love this one, and this and like something like, for example, Zefra Providence gets you a Vortex plus a Erratic Seal plus a counter trap, which is pretty good. And of course, we mentioned earlier 3 Called by the Graves. We are playing a combo deck, so we want those plays to go through. It's also pretty, there's also some cool things you can do with it. For example, like reset it with Nightmare Griffin against decks like Salamangreat. It's pretty good. Then we have, for the remaining spells, of course, we have 1 Foolish Burial and 2 Dragon Shrines. Just other ways to get spells on your Servant of Endymion, so I find that they're it's a pretty good number. I just, you know, I feel like I'd rather do this, especially with since 44 cards. The only trap I play, like I mentioned earlier, is one copy of Divine Strike. I feel like this is all you need. You can play War and Pillars if you feel like it comes up more for you, but most of the time, like after your treasures are done, or if your secret's done is searching, it's going to be linked off so you can extend and keep going. So that is why Divine Strike is the only counter drop. So for the extra deck, oh, of course, it's a Pendulum decks. We are playing, of course, the one copy of Heavy Metal Foes Electromite. It's so many things that this card does that if you are playing a Pendulum deck at all, you kind of have to have it. Even in this deck where I don't have the, you know, crazy Pendulum extenders such as Chronograph Sorcerer, it's still a fantastic card. Just being able to, for example, one of the things you can do with it is you can toolbox out Servant of Endymion and then use it to get more extender, use it to extend it out and get its effect off after you've done the full combo, which is great. Draw cards, you know, like we all know how good Electromite is. One copy of Beat Cop. This is a generic link monster, mostly for the Mare cards, since you do have tokens. It also is an effect monster, which means you can make things like the Boil Dragons with it. That's the main reason it's in here. I am considering playing something like Link Spider, but extra deck space is a little tight. And we have one Hieratic Seal of Heavenly Spheres. This is one of the best new additions to the deck. This card just helps the deck so much. Even though I don't play Sloth, this and something like Cyber's Quantum Dragon is incredibly difficult for most decks to deal with, and it's just having an extra bounce is pretty dang nice. Then for the rest of the Dragon package, our Guard Dragons, we have one LP, one Agripane, and one Triple Burst Dragon. We all know what most of these cards do. There's not so much to say. They're absolutely amazing cards, and if you're playing Guard Dragons, you're playing them. Then for the Nightmares, I have one Unicorn and one Nightmare Griffin, so I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute, but Unicorn is probably the one of the negotiable slots, so it's really good to have because you can climb into it just with Electromite and another monster, so it can help to deal with annoying things like, for example, Colossus that are getting in your way. However, Nightmare Griffin is an interesting card. Usually the combos you'll bring this out are with things like Mare, for example, but the main thing this does, when it's link summoned, you can discard a card to reset a spell or trap. So what this can do is, for example, reset your Divine Strike if you've already used it. If you're in a kind of grindy game state, this resetting Divine Strike can be really good. And it also has a kind of a floodgatey effect. Basically, special summon monsters can't activate their effects unless they're linked. So they have to be linked to a link monster has to be pointing to it in order for it to activate. So that means things like Salamangreat Gazelle cannot trigger unless they are summoned to that zone that a link monster points to. It's important though that you want to summon this in the main monster zone, because if it's in the extra zone, they can just summon the monster in front of it, so you want it in the main zone. It's a pretty good card. It's mostly a attack choice of mine, but you could definitely play a Boil Sword over it if you have it. It's really up to you. I just like the card. The one Boil Dragon, not so much to say. I feel like it's still in a good deck like this, you kind of need non-targeting removal, and it's pretty easy to make, so I feel like it's pretty staple in here. Then for some of the Vortex Dragon, of course, this is still one of your best cards in the extra deck. You can summon it out via Agripane, and and especially for Zefra, it eliminates an entire step to bring this thing out. You don't have to climb into Absolute Dragon anymore, so it's great. Then, speaking of Quantum Dragon, you have a copy of Cyber's Quantum Dragon. So if you guys aren't familiar with what this thing does, while you have a link monster out, monsters your opponent controls cannot target anything from attacks except for this thing, and they can't target your monsters with card effects except this guy. So it adds another layer of protection to your field. It works really well in combination with the Hieratic Link monster, because obviously it has 0 attack. So most opponents, what they'll do is they'll summon something and bait it out. Now you might be like, well, Aura, what if they have a big monster? Well, the cool thing about this is whenever this thing, at the end of the damage step, if it battles at the start of the damage step and it battles opponent's monster, it bounces that monster and it can make a second attack in a row. A pretty dang good effect, because it forces your opponent to basically, if they want to deal with your field, they're going to have something like Boil Dragon can't really deal with this effect. They're going to have to make some awkward moves to get rid of it. And it's also really good going second playing into a board, because you can just bounce, multiple things and get rid of them, and it doesn't target, so it helps with a lot of those things that have those annoying protection effects. And then I do still have the one copy of F.A. Dawn Dragster. There's certain scenarios where you may already have Jackal in the field with counters, so you can summon this for a spell negation. Really, it's just in here because you have the room. The one Yazi, obviously for the Mare combo, and it is a non-targetable monster, so against decks like Sky Striker, it can be pretty decent. It's not spectacular, but a non-targetable 2600 beat is pretty good. Then for the level 8s, I have the one Boiled Savage Dragon and the one Crystal Wing Synchro. This was mostly a choice because when I was looking through the extra deck, outside of things like Boiled Dragon, there aren't a lot of things that deal with big monsters, and this does. So that can be pretty good. Savage Dragon is a little stickier to summon, and you're going to need some kind of extra things to get it out. But it's still a pretty powerful card, and it'll be, a negation sitting on, 4,000 attack or whatever is still pretty dang powerful. It's definitely something I'm going to have to experiment with because a lot of my combos don't summon it, but I feel like it's so powerful. If you have the rune, you probably should be playing it. So anyway, guys, let me know what you guys think of this Zefra deck profile down in the comment section below. And as always, I thank you guys for watching. Swardstorm, signing out.